Alright guys, this is the third video on writing quadratic equations. We're going to cover how to write the quadratic equation when given the zeros and a point. One thing that you should know is that I will not be covering section D in this chapter. I will introduce this when we cover conics. Okay, so this is the last section in this chapter that we will cover before we move to section 6.2. On the next slide, I have the steps and the formula that you're going to need to use to write these equations. Make sure that you write it down and have them ready to go over while I do the examples. Alright, so the formula that I gave you to use is f of x is equal to a times x minus factor 1 times x minus factor 2. So those of you who haven't gone over factoring with me, what you should know is that when you factor a quadratic function, ax squared plus bx plus c, when I factor it, I do a times c when you sum the factors that are equal to b. So the notation that you guys are used to seeing is factor 1 times factor 2. Okay, and that's where these are coming for, because that's what it is. When you have an intercept, right, or when you factor a quadratic function, you have something like x minus 2, right, times x minus 4, and when you set that equal to 0, you have x minus 2 equals 0, where x is equal to positive 2, okay? And that's where we get those factors. That's what they're equal to. So in the equation, one thing that you need to know is that this negative right here is part of the equation. Okay, so when you plug in an intercept, so if it's this, 4 or this negative 5, you need to watch for any double negatives or, use parentheses to help you catch that. So I'm just going to label these here as our factor 1 and factor 2 so that it makes a little sense. And I'll use different colors, hopefully you can see them. Okay, so I'll put my factors in red, factor 1, factor 2, and the order doesn't matter, guys, so don't worry if you put them in as a different, in different order into here. So it doesn't matter if this is factor 1 or if you put factor 1 here, it won't make a difference. So I'm going to plug in my factors first. And then just so it's not too overwhelming. So we're going to have x minus factor 1 times x minus factor 2. Okay, so you just plug them in. 4, negative 5 over here. Okay, so I'm just going to simplify any double negatives that I have. F of x is equal to a times x minus 4 times x plus 5. Okay, so now I'm going to substitute my values for x and y. So I'm going to have y is equal to a times x minus 4 times x plus 5 over here. Okay, so my x is negative 3. Negative 3. Make sure that you plug in x for both of these, okay? Every time you see an x, you have to substitute that value. So let's simplify this. 8 is equal to a. Negative 3 minus 4 is negative 7. Negative 3 plus 5 is positive 2. Okay, 8 is equal to negative 14a. Now to solve here for a, we're just going to divide by negative 14 on each side. A is equal to negative 8 over 14, which simplifies to negative 4 over 7. I just divided both sides by 2. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we are going to plug in our value for a into this equation right here. Okay. So we have f of x is equal to negative 4 over 7, x minus 4, x plus 5. And that is the equation for a parabola that passes through the point negative 3, 8 with intercepts of 4, negative 5. So this is the information that they gave us. Okay, we know that there's an intercept at 4, 0. there's one at -5, 0, and it passes through the point -3, 8. So from this alone, because you know what a parabola looks like, you should be able to guess, okay, that it's going to look something like this. Okay, so what we found was the equation to actually graph that. All right, I have one more example for you. Here you can see that your x-intercepts are written a little bit differently. They're not written as points. Doesn't matter. Okay, we know that we have an intercept here at -2, an intercept at 2, and it passes through the point 4, 3. Okay, so looking at this, you should know, okay, I have some kind of parabola that is going to open upwards, and we are going to write the equation for that. Again, label your factors, or I mean, they're not factors, right? They're the intercepts, but so that we don't have too many x's and y's, this is what I'm going to call them. Plug them in. So f of x is equal to a times x minus your first one, x minus your second one. Okay, -2 and 2. Simplify that. A x plus 2, x minus 2. Okay, so now I'm going to plug in my values for x and y. Okay, x is 4 here and here, and my y is 3. Go through and simplify that. 3 is equal to a times 6 times 2. Okay, 3 is equal to 12a. Solve for a by dividing by 12 on each side. A is equal to 1 over 4. Okay, so once you're done, plug that into this equation right here. F of x is equal to 1 over 4, x plus 2, x minus 2. Okay. And there you go. There's the equation for that parabola right there. If you have any questions, let me know. Shoot me an email, send me a reminder, or ask me tomorrow in class. From here, you should be doing the handout that I've handed out in class for you with the graphs for you to start writing the equations. You cannot download that handout from the website, okay? I haven't made it a PDF, so make sure that you pick it up in class if you haven't done so already.